Well, we told you that this show, Straight Facts Homie, is all about the data, the information, and the trends that we see, right? And we saw a lot of those things bear out in the early slate of the Week 2 games on Sunday. Let's just start with the craziest game of all, the Cowboys and the Giants. Look, I think when we saw the Sunday night game last week between the Ravens and the Bills, a lot of us said, well, that's a game of the year, by far, no question. And then the Giants and the Cowboys said, hold my beer. Just so people understand, the Giants and the Cowboys were in a week 1 or week 2, 1 o'clock Eastern, noon Central window. That never happens. The Cowboys-Giants games are almost invariably in prime time. In fact, the last time a Cowboys-Giants game was in the 1 o'clock Eastern window on a Sunday afternoon, they were still playing in Texas Stadium. That's how long it has been before a Giants-Cowboy game wasn't in primetime. And boy, the schedule makers would have loved to have seen this game in primetime as the Cowboys come away with a win 40-37. And the stats we talk about hold. That is Dak Prescott's 14th straight win as a starting quarterback against the Giants. That is now the second longest streak in NFL history. The only other longer streak is Bob Greasy, who won 17 straight games against the Buffalo Bills when the Dolphins were everything and the Bills were terrible. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys is the kryptonite to whatever the Giants are. They're definitely not Supermen, and they certainly weren't on Sunday. Although Russell Wilson was for most of the game, except he came up short when it mattered most. But the Cowboys have also won 9 straight home games now against the Giants. Again, the last time the Cowboys lost a home game to the Giants is the last time that Dak Prescott lost a start against the Giants. That was week 1 of his rookie year in 2016. Since then, whenever Dak Prescott is in the lineup, Dak Prescott finds a way to lead the Cowboys to a win. This game was ridiculous across the charts. What did we see from New York last week? They were inept. They couldn't get anything done. Russell Wilson and the offense looked completely lethargic. And it turns out all they needed was a little love from the Dallas Cowboys defense. Russell Wilson had one of the best games of his entire career. He was 30 of 41, 450 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. But that one interception was the thing that he'll take back from this game because it took place in overtime. It took place in overtime, and it gave the Cowboys a second chance with the ball, and the Cowboys delivered with Brandon Aubrey kicking a mediocre 46-yard field goal. But Brandon Aubrey kicking a 46-yard field goal is nothing because we had 5 lead changes. 5 lead changes in the fourth quarter alone. And oh, by the way, not only do we have 5 lead changes between the Cowboys and the Giants, we also had Aubrey kicking a 64-yard field goal as time expired to send this game into overtime. And just to show you how confident the coaching staff is in Brandon Aubrey's leg, when they got it across midfield on second down, they called a draw play with time running out in the fourth quarter. They just said, we need a couple of yards for Brandon Aubrey to take us to the promised land. And that's exactly what he did. A 64-yard field goal as time expired. It would have been good from 70. And Aubrey looked like he was out there, kicking around with his kids in his backyard. It never for 1 second looked like he was remotely stressed. And Brandon Aubrey is the secret weapon that every coaching staff wants on their team. For years, that was Justin Tucker with the Baltimore Ravens. For a lot of reasons, Justin Tucker is not in the NFL right now. We don't need to go into those. But this is what such a weapon you have in Aubrey. The Cowboys knew they don't even need to dial up a play that might be risky. 64 yards from Aubrey, no problem. He'll put it through, and he did. And it just continues what Brandon Aubrey has done for his entire career. Just so people understand, how good is Brandon Aubrey from plus 50? In his career, he's 26 of 29 in field goals 50 yards or longer. 26 of 29. A lot of kickers would love 26 of 29 on extra points. And those are 33 yards. These are his numbers from plus 50. He is absolutely the biggest weapon you can have in the NFL right now in the kicking game. And we saw it again on Sunday. Not only to send the game to overtime, but a 46-yarder felt like it was a 23-yard chip shot. Now, there's a lot to get into here besides just the craziness of the game. We need to talk about James Hudson. James Hudson had 4 penalties, the offensive lineman for the Giants, had 4 penalties called against him in the opening drive, and it was eventually replaced. I mean, there was one play when he dropped back at left tackle to set, and instead of even trying to block, he just took his hand and hit the Cowboy rusher in the head, pushed him to the ground. Hey, that's cool if we're playing in the 70s when the head slap was a legal play. That was the most obviously penalty of all time. This guy was not ready to play mentally. Like, there was something wrong with him. And you saw the issue with him when he was pulled from the game. He was going nuts. And it's like, brother, you had 4 penalties on one drive. In what world do you think you're not getting replaced? In what world do you think that justifies going back out there? So the Giants have an abundance of issues. And Brian Daboll is in real trouble. I give him credit for sticking with Russell Wilson, and Russell played great except for that one critical mistake in the fourth quarter. But now the Giants are an absolute mess. The only good news for the Giants, when you look back at this game, is the reminder that the last team to start a year 0-2 and win the Super Bowl, that was the 2007 Giants, the year they stunned the Patriots in Super Bowl 42, 17-14. I don't think this Giants team is going to be able to replicate that. And Brian Daboll is really, really going to be on the hot seat. And some of it is his fault and some of it isn't. Because we've talked about this before. If you don't have a dude at quarterback that you can rely on week in and week out, it is very hard to win in the NFL. And what we've seen from Russell week 1 as opposed to Russell from week 2, you just don't know what you're going to get. And what we saw from Russell in week 2 might say more about who he was playing than Russell Wilson himself. Look, you never apologize for a win in the NFL. It doesn't happen. You only get 17 of these things, and every opportunity you have to get them to go somewhere, you try and find a way to get it done. So the Cowboys, by hook or by crook, by magic, by Aubrey's leg, by a bunch of different things, found a way to get it done. But the Cowboys also have tons of issues left. Their pass rush was non-existent today. You saw that time and time again. I think he had 2 sacks in the afternoon, and that allowed Russell to just dial it up to whatever receiver he wanted, mostly to Malik Neighbors, time in and time out throughout that game. Wow, what could the Cowboys have done differently this offseason to ensure they had a pass rush? Oh, that's right. They could have signed that guy Micah Parsons, who in 2 games has been extremely productive for the Green Bay Packers. So while you are happy for the win, if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you got to take a long look at yourself and say, we got all kinds of issues going forward. We don't have defensive stability. We don't have somebody that can give us the pass rush that we needed. And we don't have the closer. Okay, you have the closer on offense in Brandon Aubrey, and you have enough weapons on offense. We saw George Pickens step up and play very, very well for the Dallas Cowboys today. And that was a huge part of this game because CeeDee Lamb made up for those drops in the Thursday night opener against the Philadelphia Eagles. George Pickens came up great, had a huge first down on the final drive, also had a touchdown in the fourth quarter that kept the Cowboys in this game. The Cowboys have their weapons on offense, but they don't have a defensive closer. And I don't care what Jerry says. I don't care when he tries to put the spin on this Micah Parsons deal. The bottom line is they should have done this a year ago, and it would have cost them about $32 million a year for Micah, as opposed to what they did waiting this long. And if there was anything that summed up this game, besides the craziness of it and the just pure proving once again how great of a weapon Brandon Aubrey is, it was this. There were 4 penalties called on one play early on in the first half of this game. 3 of them against the Giants and 1 against the Cowboys that offset all 3 against the Giants. Giants had 9 penalties in the first half, and they had 3 offset on 1 play because CeeDee Lamb was taunting the defensive back that was called for pass interference on him in the end zone. So as crazy as this game was, it was also very sloppy and not well coached on either side. And the fact that you had 3 Giants penalties offset by 1 CeeDee Lamb taunting penalty might sum up the state of both of these organizations in general. But the bottom line for the Cowboys, they had to find a way to get it done. They found a way to get it done. They walk away with a win over the Giants at home, and the stat holds. 14 straight starts, Dak Prescott has led the Cowboys to wins over the Giants, and that is straight facts, homie.